I am officially bulletproofed. Yes, that's why my skin is glowing and I'm looking ripped and jacked. It's because every morning I take my mycotoxin-free bulletproof coffee and mix it up with MCT oil and grass-fed butter. Why, do you ask? Well, it does a lot of things. It replaces my meal for the morning, and it gets my brain all the right nutrients they need. Those oils, that fat, and then I don't eat until 1 or 2 o'clock. So it's not really just coffee. It's turning into a lifestyle.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about women in MMA and the fact that you're getting BBC coverage. You know, Ronda Rousey's getting ESPN coverage, where the sport could never get that coverage before, no matter what kind of super athlete you have, whether it's John Jones or Anderson Silva. And now all of a sudden these new media outlets are coming in, and women are coming in and getting main events and stuff like that. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, there's been no history in the last even like 500 years of everyone watching women compete in such a high level of fighting. Do you think we're not ready for it? Do you think people are not used to it?
I mean, I think the thing with women's fights, particularly with the way the UFC have done it, I think it gets a certain amount of attention from the mainstream media because it's something that people don't expect to see. I think one of the problems that maybe mixed martial arts has had as a sport is that people from outside look at it and they think they know what it's about. You know, guys fighting, it's got all the stereotypes attached to it, and people make a lot of assumptions based on that. Now, I think when you put women in there, it goes against some of those stereotypes and maybe doesn't fit as neatly with people's assumptions about what fighting is about. And it makes people look twice. And I think that's the thing maybe that gets the media attention.
So why so much more with women's MMA than women's boxing or women's Thai boxing?
I think particularly at the moment, you know, you've got the whole phenomenon of the UFC and with Ronda Rousey as well. I mean, I think she's got a lot to do with the current interest in women's MMA. I think the fact that she's come across from being a highly successful Olympic athlete, and also she's got a personality which is very, very media friendly. You know, I think a lot of people are very interested in what she's got to say. She's got a character there. You know, I think, love her or hate her, you know, she's someone that people are going to be interested in. So I think that definitely gets a lot of attention as well, and maybe opens some people's eyes to women's MMA who hadn't really considered it before. Possibly, you know, even within the UFC itself, I think, and that's kind of opened some doors for the other female fighters. And I mean, I think one of the interesting things about the women's division is that there are so many people there with so many different stories, you know, so many different backgrounds, and I think it's a lot harder to stereotype female fighters than it is to stereotype male fighters, at least from, you know, the perspective of an outsider coming into the sport. You know, I think MMA fans, you know that the fighters are all different and everyone's got their favourite and like that. But I think from outside, the danger is that people just assume, you know, it's two thugs beating each other up in a cage. I mean, that's the perception issue that the MMA has struggled with really from day one.
Yeah, they're all bald guys with tattoos.
Yeah, with tattoos.
Cauliflower ears.
Tattoos on their hands and face. And cauliflower ears. No, it is a strange thing. It's like when you see guys, you know, in the cage, then people kind of like, oh yeah, that's what these weird guys do. But when they see a woman, they're like, well, maybe we should find out what's going on.
I mean, I don't think it's no more true for the guys. You know, I think there's a lot of people from a lot of different backgrounds who come to the sport, but I think it's much easier to make those assumptions when it's two men.
Right.
When you throw women in there, it's almost like it doesn't quite fit with the way people's brains work, people's stereotypes, and so it makes people look twice. And then as soon as people start looking into the sport, they maybe see a little bit deeper than they saw before, and they start to look at it a bit differently.
I love watching women's fights. I mean, I've talked about this before with you. Is it like, because when they're in there, the women really just lay it all out on the line. It's just like they don't have to be there. It's not considered a byproduct of their manhood. Like, you really had to go out of your way to fight MMA. You know, you really had to, you know, tell everyone to fuck off and you're going to do this with your life. And then you have to get beat up and probably not paid very well. And you still do it, and you still do it, and you still do it. And so when I see two women fight on any card, usually it's a fantastic fight and they lay it all on the line. Where sometimes I see guys doing it and maybe they don't know why they're doing it. I don't know, maybe I'm being really unfair to a lot of male fighters, but sometimes I see two guys in there that don't seem to want it as bad as the women.
I think that's a good point, actually. I mean, I think people have often said, you know, the women always come to fight. And I think it does have a lot to do with the fact that at this point in time, anyway, the women who are there, they're not there because they didn't get into the sport with the expectation of making a lot of money or, you know, becoming famous.
Right, or even being cool,
exactly, yeah,
or being accepted by their peers, the opposite.
I think this is it. I think the people who are there at this point in time, you know, they're because they really love the sport. You know, it'd be interesting to see if that changes, you know, over the next few years. You know, now MMA, women's MMA is trendy. You know, it'll be interesting to see sort of the next generation coming through. You know, I think we're going to see a lot of talent, but it'll be interesting to see whether people are getting into it for those same reasons, you know, or whether that changes a little bit.
Pete, what do you think about?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about the same thing when I was a guest. You know, when we're talking about what's your motivation and stuff like that. And I had to concede, I don't know why girls do it. I don't know. You know, I mean, to be honest, I wasn't interested in women's MMA at all. You know, I just ended up meeting Rosie, and that was basically how come I ended up following women's MMA at all. But if it wasn't for Rosie, I would never watch the girls fight till this day, probably.
Wow. I'm glad you laid on the line like that. This is what makes a ball game, as they say in the States. So why do you fight?
I wish I could tell you. I think my reasons have changed over the years. You know, I think the reasons I do it now aren't the same as the reasons I started out. You know, I mean, going back to when I started out in martial arts, you know, I was a naive 14-year-old kid. You know, I think it was initially about self-defense. You know, I wanted to know that. I'm going to say self-defense, but I think when people talk about self-defense in a martial arts context, what they really mean is they want to know that they can fight. You know, not necessarily because they want to fight, but in order to know that they can. I think it's. So
it's not self-defense; it's really just offense, just knowing they could beat someone up.
Or in a physical confrontation, you can come out on top.
Okay.
I suppose, you know, not necessarily that you want to initiate it, but
just say it.
Yeah.
Just say you want to beat people up. It's all right, you know.
Yeah.
Don't let her. Don't let her lie to me.